Well, good evening, everybody. It's a gorgeous evening here in Maryland. I figured I'd come over to the yard after work this afternoon and do a little work here that a lot of you don't get to see too often on a lot of these Firewood channels. Some behind the scenes kind of stuff that is not fun to do, but it is a necessary task, at least for me in my situation. So today I'm going to show you something still firewood related, but something that you might not see too often on other channels, so stick around. So I get comments all the time on my videos of people telling me how I have the cleanest wood yard on YouTube, or they love how I keep the yard so tidy, or, you know, why do you waste your time cleaning up the mess when you're just going to create more mess the next time you process wood. Now, we all like to get to this point where you have beautiful rows and beautiful stacks of wood, but in order to get to that point, you've got to make a mess. And we've got a mess up here right now. As you know, we've been splitting and processing a good bit of firewood here recently, and due to the situation here where my family lives, my mother's house where I grew up, this is all family that lives all around me, and we have a piece of property here that's right along the highway. And you know, if you have a messy yard, it can be somewhat of an eyesore. But if you keep firewood clean, stacked in nice clean rows, even the rounds, just stacking the rounds up, it's actually very appealing. My mom even says how much she likes to look at the rows and stacks of wood. So in order to do that, you have to keep up with the mess. Now, I would be lying to you if I told you that I enjoy keeping the yard clean and spending the time to clean up the mess, but that's just not the case. A lot of times my reservation with taking the time and making the time to clean up the messes, I'm conflicted because I want to spend the time that I have processing more and more firewood. That's a battle that I struggle within myself to battle, but every once in a while you just got to say, okay, the mess is getting a little out of hand. I'm going to take a day, set the schedule for that day, and just clean up the mess. And the reward of cleaning up the mess and seeing the yard at the end is almost as satisfying as processing and stacking a cord of firewood. Although you're not producing anything, you're not getting ahead on supply, you're still keeping a tidy yard, and that means a lot to me. And I know it means a lot to my mom too, since the yard's here on her property. So this big old pile of mess here, we're going to get cleaned up today. The pile of mess that's out front from where we were bucking logs, that's all going to get cleaned up today. And I've developed a little bit of a process on how I like to clean up. So I'll take you along with me and show you how I clean up, what I do with certain scraps, and how I get rid of certain scraps. So that's the plan. Step one for me is getting rid of the big stuff first. These chunks, these cookies, crotch pieces, and stuff that's still burnable, just won't split into nice looking firewood, we'll get rid of first. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put the forks on the skid loader. I'll bring an IBC tote up here, and we will throw all these chunks and scraps into the IBC tote, get rid of the big stuff first, and then I'll show you what we do with the smaller stuff. So this is the part that I was telling you might look fun, but it's not. But it's necessary, and you know, at the end of it, there is still an element of satisfaction. Now, these totes that I fill up with this kind of scrap wood, I do sell for bonfire wood, or if somebody has an outdoor wood boiler that they want to use this for, I sell a whole tote for $50. I have a customer coming to get 1 or 2 of them this week, and he's going to bring his dump trailer, and for the first time I'm going to attempt to dump IBC totes into his dump trailer. Now, I've seen Dick over at the Old Firewood Guy channel, or I'm sorry, Old Guy Firewood. He had a video where he showed how he dumps his totes into a dump trailer, and he opens the back doors and kind of tips them over and straps them to the forks. And I don't think it's a perfect answer, but it's probably the most practical one. So I'm going to attempt that here probably later on this week, because I've got a couple IBC totes full of wood down there that have been sitting for almost 2 years. So it'll be really good for somebody, I think. Anyway, I'm going to keep loading this stuff up, and then we'll move on to the next step. So like I told you, this is kind of a multi-step process to clean up. Now, it would be a lot easier if I just came in with the skid loader bucket, scooped it all up, and dumped it all out and got rid of it all. Bark, kindling, chunks, nasty stuff. Now, what you just saw me throwing in the tote there, you might think is good firewood, but the stuff that I throw aside is either really, really knotty and nasty, or it's kind of punky. It starts, sometimes you have those big rounds that start to rot in the center, so you split the good wood out around, get the good stuff out, and then you have kind of the stuff that's questionable somewhere in the log. Sometimes it's on the outside of it, you know, and the inside's good, and sometimes the inside's bad and the outside's good. So all that stuff there that's split is stuff that was questionable, so I just throw it aside. Now, the next step in this process that I do is I'll go through quickly. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time, but I just go through quickly and pull out some of the nicer kindling pieces. And as you know, I'll throw them aside in that IBC tote that I have down below. I keep all the kindling in. So I'll go through here real quick, pull out some nice pieces of kindling, and then the rest will all get scooped up when I switch out the forks to the bucket. So like I said, I don't spend a whole lot of time digging through that. I just get what's easily accessible that I can see on top, and I ended up with a pretty good wheelbarrow load of kindling here. So I'll keep that aside, and I give that away to my customers who buy cordwood in the winter. The rest of this, we're going to get rid of the forks in that IBC tote. We'll switch over to the bucket, and all this will get loaded in the dump trailer. So that looks a lot better, but it's not done yet. There's still another step, and yes, I even rake up the wood chips. Here we go. Kind of a different video today, just something that you don't see on a whole lot of other channels, and it's something that I get questions about quite a bit in the comments of some of my videos. I do try to take pride in the way the yard looks. Some of you may see that as kind of a waste of time, and as I've said before in other videos, if I was somewhere where I was on a private land in an industrial area or actual business property, it probably wouldn't be such a big deal to me. But seems how there's a lot of traffic that goes by here. This is, the land that my family owns and lives on. It's the land that I grew up on. When I started all this, I started doing this firewood after my dad passed away to kind of keep me closer to home, keep me closer to my mom, and to occupy my mind and help me with the grieving process and recovering from that loss. It's turned into something way more than I ever imagined. But my dad always took pride in his land and his property. I remember being a kid and riding my four-wheeler around, and there was only certain areas of the yard that I was allowed to ride the four-wheeler on because he didn't want track marks through his yard. So I often wonder what my dad would think about all these rows of firewood down here in the field. I've had that conversation with my mom a couple times, and she just thinks he would love it. It would be a conversation piece for him. If you knew my dad, he loved it. If he catch you in a grocery store and you were in a hurry, you were going to be late because he was going to show you pictures of his grandkids, his kids, and just talk to you about his family. So I hope my dad's proud. I hope my dad sees the effort that I'm doing to try to keep the place looking as neat as it can be. And that's just a little glimpse at some of the work that I do around here to try to keep it up. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you all have a great week. Click on some of the videos here on the side, and if you haven't seen them before, check those out. Leave me a comment. I love to read all your feedback. And until next week, I hope you all have a good time, stay safe, and we'll talk to you then.